Welcome back to Living from the Inside Out, Life in the Spiritual Lane. My name's Anne-Marie McElrone, and some of you may know that this podcast is recorded in Halifax. And Halifax is known for its lighthouses, and lighthouses can draw people in with their beautiful light. And we've been very fortunate. We have a wonderful soul visiting Halifax right now. Her name is Suman. She is a project manager par excellence, situated normally at the Global Retreat Centre in Oxford in the UK, but drawn to Halifax and is with us for a period of time. And so we're going to make the most of this opportunity and have a conversation with her while she's with us. You may be interested to know that Suman has been meditating since she was a teenager, which is a few decades ago at the very least. We're really happy to have you with us, Suman. Thanks so much for agreeing to have a conversation while you're here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I just met Suman a couple of days ago, and it was quite something to hear her voice in person for the first time, because Suman, I've been listening to your voice for quite a few years in the meditation commentaries that are part of the B Zone app, and that's BEE Zone, and a wonderful app that I use for morning meditation on an ongoing basis. So quite beautiful to meet the person behind that voice. Tell me a little bit about that experience of being involved in the creation of that app.
I was invited to write a few meditations, and I was given topics on that. And I just remember thoroughly enjoying writing them and then actually speaking them. And I enjoyed writing them because in general, I love writing. And when I'm asked especially to write something, so there's two types of writing. There's one is when I instigate it, and the other is when I am asked to instigate. And every time I'm asked to instigate, do something like that, I watch how I'm like a third party. And I see the words just come out, and I feel no sense of ownership, and I watch them appear on the page. And as they're appearing on the page, I think, wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's beautiful. And it takes my breath away. So that's, in a nutshell, my experience of those meditation commentaries. Like, it has nothing to do with me. It's just about being available.
And do you think that's because of the length of time that you've been meditating, that you can access this well, perhaps access some place where this creativity, where this, like maybe even a different language comes from? Is that something that happens with a length of time meditating? Is that the secret?
I think it has nothing to do with time. I think somebody could access a talent like that overnight, even in a second. Not even overnight, but in a second. I think the prerequisite is something like selflessness and very high noble intention. When those two things combine, and then it's like the universe sees the goodness of your intention, and it just sweeps you away and enables you to do what is needed for the greater good of all. I once had this amazing experience. There is a word that in the Hindi language, I do not know what the English translation is exactly. So I'm going to use the Hindi and then try to explain it the best I can. And the word is Karan Karavan Har. And it is a name that they use to describe one of the facets of God. And they say that he is the one who inspires from up above. He inspires in people to move in certain ways and to do good. And he is the one making you move. That's the kind of sentiment behind it. And it's not that you're a puppet, but you become, I don't know, an instrument, or the thread is in his hands to do, and he enables something amazing to happen through you. And I once had a really distinct experience of the mechanics behind who he chooses, how he chooses them, why he chooses them. And there was a huge event happening. We had a very top spiritual leader visiting one of our centers, and we must have had, I don't know, close to 2,000 people around. And this guest was going to be leaving, and everybody was coming out to say bye to them. So you imagine a crowd of 2,000 people coming to see off this person. And the driver who'd been designated to drive them away had lost their set of directions to the next destination. And we were in this reception area. I mean, there wasn't an inch to move, hundreds of people in this small space. And this poor girl is trying to get to the reception desk and is asking people along the way, can anybody guide me? And everybody is just so caught up in wanting to see the leader of that. She's not getting anybody to pay her any attention, but she needs to get the car ready. She needs to know where she's going. It's like a VIP. And somehow I was in there, and I don't know, it caught my eye, like being pushed in this sea of people back and forth, caught my eye. And I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I felt drawn to her like a magnet. It wasn't anything to do with me. Like a magnet, I was drawn to her. So I found myself next to her. I found myself holding her hand and pulling her out of the crowd. And I led her down a quiet corridor, and I said to her, what do you need? And she told me what she needed. So then we went into a quiet office, figured it all out, gave her the papers, and then I just disappeared, and she disappeared, and that was the end of it. And, you know, she was just so relieved. But the magic of it for me was afterwards, in the following days, I reflected on what happened. This is my personal subjective experience. I'm not saying it is exactly like that, but this is what came to me about what happened. She called out from her heart to God, the universe, whoever, I need help. It was an earnest plea from her heart, and that vibration went out into the atmosphere. I need help. It was sincere. That got picked up by Karan Karavanhar. He scanned everybody in the area to see who would have the skill set to be able to help her. He identified, I'm saying he, but higher being could be a he, could be a she, it's genderless. So he scanned, he saw the skill set, he identified maybe, 10, 15, however many people in the vicinity. Then he did a second scan, willingness to help. Then he did a third scan, unavailable mind. And he found that I ticked the box for all three, because there were people who had the skills, they were available, but they were too busy, preoccupied in their mind with the departure of the VIP. So their mind wasn't available, there wasn't space. And to this day, and that would have been, more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago, to this day, I can remember the sweetness that I felt in my heart, the softness, the peacefulness that I got as a fruit for being available that day and helping at a time of need. And I didn't, and what made it even nicer was that I didn't feel I did anything. I felt like it was all him. It was nothing to do with me. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And that's how I feel with the commentaries in the writing. And that's why I say anybody can do it. But if we need to maybe have those, that availability, that selflessness, that, I don't know, not wanting to get in the way.
What a great description of what it means to be an instrument. So we've just started chatting a little bit about, I'm not going to get the pronunciation right, Aaron Karavanhar, maybe that's close, and the idea of being an instrument, which is something we talk about at the meditation center quite a bit, but that idea may be new to our listeners. Maybe you could help unpack that a little bit. What does it mean to be an instrument?
I think exactly as the word says, instrument. So let's take a flute, for example. That's probably the better example. And it's somebody else who is the flute is just the instrument, but it's being used by somebody else. It's their breath, it's their skill at opening and closing certain holes, and you are just the instrument, literally.
And the instrument's being played by the divine,
Mm-hmm.
by the Supreme
Yeah,
Soul, by God. So when we're living from the inside out, is that what part of it is?
I think when we live from the inside, live on the inside, we're hearing with an inner ear. We are hearing the things that people are not saying or don't know how to say. Again, I'm going to use another Hindi word. It's one of my all-time favorite words. It's a word that if I had to make I don't know, a mission statement, maybe that's not the right word for what I would like my purpose on this earth to be, I would include this word in that. And the word is Mano Amnai. And it means the innermost wishes, the innermost unexpressed, unvoiced, deepest wishes of the heart of a person. You know, sometimes you really, really want something, but you don't even know how to describe what it is that you want, but it is your innermost wish. And you accidentally might come across somebody who's like a real empath and they tune into that thing that they can feel what you want. And just at a vibrational level, they provide that for you. It might be love in a certain way. It might be understanding. It might be just being quiet with them. And without your having to say a word, they get you and they say exactly the right thing or do exactly the right thing. And you sit there and you go, wow, I didn't even need to do anything and they got it. And you feel so relieved that you didn't have to make the effort to express or unpack it. They just caught this innermost wish of yours. And I think living from the inside means that you can hear those wishes of people with your inner ear, and then you bond with people at a much deeper level than external socializing. For example, where we do all the small talk and we try to find out about a person's life and their history and what do you do at work and what are your hobbies and what kind of people do you like and what kind of house do you like, and we try to get to know one another at that level. But going deeper and getting to know one another at this deep heart level, soul to soul, there's a bonding in that, an unspoken bonding in that, that makes a relationship really, really unbreakable. A lot of our relationships nowadays are fragile. Divorce rates are up, families are splitting up. So, why do our relationships break? Because we don't have this, we haven't invested in this thing that makes unbroken bonding, this inner work. So for me, inside, working from the inside is something, part of that is this listening very acutely, tuning in.
You've had you've had probably many guides along that journey, but there was one guide in particular for you early on who used this phrase, I believe, living from the inside out. Tell us a little bit about that that soul and what you learned about that idea of living from the inside out. I'm talking, of course, about Daddy Jakey.
So, Daddy Janki, there was a book compiled on the basis of some conversations that the author had with Daddy Janki. Conversations, interviews, and he was asking her about some very basic things that the human heart looks for in this world: happiness, peace, love, power. There was a fifth one, I don't remember what it was. And when he'd finished the author had finished compiling these conversations, the title for the book that they came up with was Inside Out. And they came up with that title from a statement that Daddy Janki had made. And the statement she had made was that she described, she'd use an analogy. One is when the boat is on the water. What is your experience? It's lovely. You're rocking away. The breeze is there. It's mellow. When the boat is on the water. And then she said, but let's reverse that a little bit, change that sentence around a little bit. And now we're saying water in the boat. And when the water's in the boat and the boat is sinking, now you're panicking, you're scared, you're going to drown. One word, in and on, were changed. So that is the difference between inside out living and outside in living. When things from the outside, I allow them in to my inner world, things that are happening around me, the relationship problem, the boss problem, the neighbor problem. Those are things happening around me, outside of me. When I bring them inside into my mind, I begin to feel like I'm drowning. But if I live above or on those things, then the experiences of floating, of enjoyment.
So far, I hear living from the inside out, an opportunity to have almost like an express train to knowing someone. So, as opposed to the way that we try to get to know someone from all these little bits and pieces of external information, an opportunity to know them at a much deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
to be there for each other at a much deeper level, an opportunity to maybe float above some of the challenges that come our way during life. And then this idea that we talked about at the beginning of being on a frequency to be there when needed in some unexpected kind of way, almost like getting a signal that says what is needed in the moment, what another soul needs in the moment, and then being able to respond. Are there other examples that you can think of that you've come across in your life or that you've observed in others about the benefits, practical benefits of living from the inside out?
I don't know if I can talk about examples of, I can't think of any examples. I'm sure there are, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any right away when it relate about others. But I do know one thing that I'm learning more and more, especially in the last few years, and that is that the inside thing means is also about my relationship with myself. That's another dimension. Inside me is me, and my relationship with myself affects everything that happens on the outside, in my outside world. So if I don't have a good relationship with myself, if I'm self negating, for instance, if I'm self neglecting, for instance, then that will manifest in how I treat others. It will leak whatever is my relationship with myself. It's directly proportionate to the way in which I will treat the world, people, my possessions, everything around me. That's a deeper level of work. And that's a little bit scary, that type of work, because we bury, I think, some uncomfortable things, and they sit there like a lead weight in our inner world. And we do lot. Daddy Yankee used to say, had this expression that went viral for a bit, and it was busy means lazy, which doesn't make sense really if you just listen to it literally. Like if you're busy, obviously you're not lazy. But she would say, sometimes we busy ourselves with it, lots of activity so that we don't need to go and remove this lead weight that is like a burden. We all carry a kind of, I'm saying we, that's presumptuous of me. Um, Sometimes some of us may have some burdens inside, in the inside world. And unless we converse and reconcile and face and sit with those burdens, and let's personify them. Let's say the burden is a person who we've had a falling out with. You know, sometimes we will avoid at all costs having that difficult conversation because things might come up that I feel I can't take or that I might have to take responsibility for. So we put it off, put it off, put it off, put it off, but it's still sitting there like a weight in my heart. And I think really living from the inside out in a very happy way, in a very consistent way, means taking some time to do that reconciliation. Because the experience that I described, of helping that girl out, that was just, it was a random thing, you know? It's not something I found that I can sustain, or I would love to be in that sweet feeling all the time. But I only ever find myself being used in that way occasionally. What is it? I have to ask myself, what is it that doesn't allow me to be like that all the time, an instrument all the time? And it's because that work of reconciliation, I haven't really tackled it to the extent that I need to.
Right. So we spend a lot of our time in the external world, the outer world, busying ourselves, doing the things of day to day life in some way allows us to avoid the work of
Yeah.
the inner world.
Hmm.
So if we want to live in the inner world and there are these lead weights or burdens around us, I'm picturing, a room that's got some baggage hidden under the desk or in a drawer somewhere that maybe we've not opened. How does meditation help us with that? How does it help us open the drawers, look under the desk, uh, maybe pick up the weight and transform it?
I don't think it's meditation. that helps us. I think that we can't meditate properly, meaningfully, if we have these, or sustainably, if we have these things that are unresolved, that need to be opened, unpacked, put away in the right place. I think that's a different, it just needs reflection. It needs, and simple thing, it just needs me to make a decision to put some time aside. Because if you don't invest in something, how is it going to grow? If you don't water a plant, how is it going to grow? So it's about making a decision that says, okay, I have got a heck of a lot of things to do, but life is such that we will always have things to do. We have a life, we can be working to the very last minute of our lives, to the day we're supposed to die. There's always going to be that to-do list. It's never ending. So at some point, if you really care about yourself, you're going to have to say, make a choice. I'm going to put all those things on one side for X amount of time and do this for myself. And it could be 3 days, it could be a week. But what is 1 week out of your whole life if it's going to help make a shift that would change the trajectory of your life? That's going to bring this lightness and this freedom and this liberation. What is 1 week? What is 1 month? What is it actually even 6 months if you give yourself? But it's about having the courage to drop everything and make this your priority.
Is it something that we could even chip away at bit by bit? Could we do 30 minutes a day? Could we do 3-hour chunks of time? We have a wonderful thing at the meditation center called Soul Sunday that is just it's reflection, it's internal reflection. Can you do it bit by bit? Does it have to be all at once?
I think you can do it bit by bit, but I think that my personal experience, I can't speak with authority on this for the whole planet and everybody in it. But my personal experience has been, for me, that I need the initial chunk of time I need to give. And then after that, I can do it. I need to keep working on it in increments. But to begin with, it's like a plane, on a runway. It doesn't take off from starting position. It goes down the runway. It picks up speed and velocity on the way, and then it takes off. And then the pilot has to maintain it, take it to greater heights bit by bit, and then maintain its height and navigate through the different storms or clouds or whatever else it might be. But you need the runway to get going.
We need some momentum to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Suman, appreciate this conversation so much. So many beautiful images, so many beautiful examples, and very practical information that you've shared. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you. I've also enjoyed it.